Hey everyone, in the last video we learned about how to set up a very basic Flexbox where we have display flex on the wrapper and we can use flex values to proportionately give sizes to each of our boxes. What we're going to learn about today is how we can use rows, columns, as well as reverse and reorder each of these boxes however we want. So by default, when we look in here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, left to right. What we can also do is use something called Flexdirection. So Flexdirection, and by default it's going to be row. So if you want it to be a single row like this across, no problem there. If I refresh, you'll see nothing's happening. However, if I change that to column and give it a save and refresh, you're going to see that we flipped to a stacked column look here. So all of ours, instead of in a row, are in a single column 1 through 10. Now you may be saying, well, what's the point of that? I could just do width 100%. That's not really Flexbox, that's just normal CSS. But the benefit of this comes when we get into wrapping elements as well as constraining widths. So you can think of this as a blog post, and if we had it as Flexdirection row, you could imagine we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then maybe it splits onto the second line 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If we have column, you could imagine we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as it is, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to the left of it. So if you've ever tried to kind of spill over content to the next column, you know that that's not really that easy with HTML because you have to create a second div and float it to the right. With Flexbox, we're able to just say, put half of them on the left and half of them on the right, and show me the first 5 on the left-hand side, show me the second 5 on the right-hand side. And we're going to get into that when we take a look at wrapping as well as widths on our flex boxes. The other two that we have is the ability to reverse the items in our flex boxes. So we can say column dash reverse, and by adding that dash reverse, what's going to happen is we're simply just going to reverse all of the elements on the page. So instead of 1 to 10, we're starting at 10 and going down to 1. And this is purely visual, which is one of the really nice things about Flexbox, is that if we open up our dev tools here and I inspect box number 10, it's actually still the last one in our HTML. So we're not taking the HTML out of the DOM, remanipulating it with JavaScript and spitting it back in like you may have done previously. Right now, all we're simply doing is just displaying it differently than we normally would. This, of course, also works for row reverse. So Flexdirection row reverse. Give it a refresh. Now we're going from 10 to 1 instead of 1 to 10. Our flex value of 4 is still there, and our flex value of 2 is still working just fine. Now that's great, but the real power of Flexbox actually comes from the ability to reorder elements on the page by a case-by-case scenario. So often it happens where I get a design and I'm working on it for a client, and it looks great on the desktop, and then when we resize, we get into responsive. What happens is they say, oh well, put this thing at the top and that thing at the bottom. And the reality is that you can't really rearrange items unless you're using JavaScript to take them out of the page and spit them back in. But with responsive design, we don't have the ability to reorder elements on the page. So how they lay in the HTML is generally how they lay when you see them on the page. But with Flexbox, we are actually able to order the elements on the page how we want them to display visually. And that's with a property called order. So by default, all elements are going to be order 0, which means that they have no order at all and they come first. But when you bring in any value higher than 0, such as 1, what it's going to do is it's going to just rearrange it totally for you. So here I have box 3 with order 1. And refresh, you say 3 is here. Now 3 brought itself all the way to the end. And you may be saying, well, what? I said 1. Shouldn't it be at the start? Well, that's actually because all of the previous ones, like I said, are order 0. So if I were to go to box and type order 0, you see that all of those boxes, which is the default, come before 1. So I can take box 3 and do order 1. I can do dot box 2 and do order 2. And that's going to bring it. So 0, 1, 2. I can do dot box 1, order 3. And then we can skip over to box 6 here, order 4. It's going to bring it to the end here. And now we've got 10 right in the middle. So if I wanted 10 to go at the front or maybe in the middle somewhere, I would just take the remaining numbers and give them an order that is higher than 0. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward little tool, a Flexbox, but super, super powerful that lets us reorder elements based on how we want them to show up in the page. This is especially helpful when you have items that are sometimes in the sidebar and you want a few of them to go before your content and you want a few of them to go after the content. Using Flexbox is a really, really powerful tool for something like that. So stay tuned, and in the next video we're going to be looking at using widths on Flexboxes, as well as taking a look at Flex Grow, Flex Shrink, and Flex Basis.